I'm going to call us to order. It is 6:36. I see no citizens to comment. Our old business, the REDI statement for the District 65 petition. Martha, did you get a chance to read what Elaine wrote?
I did, and I think it's great. I'm the kind of person that always has some sort of an edit or, you know, a way to reword something, and I don't have a single change. I think it's perfect.
Good job, Elaine.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
Yeah. I think
JC had sent me her notes, and then you sent that, and I was like, well, I'm not going to write something. That's perfect. Elaine nailed it.
Well, no pride of authorship. So if you want to make some changes, please do it.
It was beautifully worded.
Oh, thank you.
I agree. There's nothing in there that I would change. You know, having gone through the list that we had, I think it included everything that we'd spoke about. I think it's perfect.
Well, thank you. I'll tell you, and at our next meeting, or I can spend some more time talking about it. But this attack on District 65 is part of a national strategy. And it's well funded. I get a fundraising email every day about this crap. Excuse my language. And it's at least one, sometimes multiple emails. I don't know how I got on their list, but anyway, I guess I am. And they're putting together a database of school districts that they're targeting. Right now, the Illinois school districts that they're targeting are the Chicago Public Schools and the Elgin schools. I just took a very quick look to see what they were doing with that. With the Chicago Public Schools, they prominently feature each of the board members. The media that I've been receiving, or the emails I've been receiving, sound to me like they're encouraging their followers to pack board meetings, of course, campaign for extremist candidates and try to get them on the Board of Education. It's interesting that they have those board members so prominently featured. The school board members. It's almost like an invitation to harass them. So they also had a thumbnail of the different things that they were objecting to. interestingly, even though they're fundraising on the notion of critical race theory, what they talked about with Chicago Public Schools was that some of the CPS schools have clinics where they provide birth control advice, and they make condoms available to the students for free. That was something that they attacked as part of the devious left-wing agenda. But that's what they're calling it. And the other thing that they talked about was the fact that several Chicago public schools opted not to have police presence in the schools. And the Chicago Board of Education left it up to the local school councils to decide whether or not they wanted to have police disciplinarians in their schools. And a small number of LSCs opted not to have police presence, or more typically to cut back on the number. Let's say there were 2 that were allocated to the school, just to have 1 officer present so that they could use the funds for other purposes. And that was one of the things that they targeted as being, I don't know, a Black Lives Matter attack or something like that. It was very vague, and they didn't say anything about critical race theory. But the database is just starting, and they're fundraising to create that. And I can anticipate that, given the DMAR litigation, we'll be right there, and our local board members are going to be, held out for public attacks and private attacks. So this is very serious stuff. I might mention, I sent that one article around. That article was about the kinds of tactics that I'm talking about that were being applied in an Ohio school district, or 2 Ohio school districts. They were, not coincidentally, they were both relatively affluent school districts. The other one was it was Loudoun County, Virginia, which again is an affluent school district in a swing area. And I would suggest that what they're doing here has very, very little to do with any concern about public education, much more with concern about the upcoming midterms, and that Evanston is being targeted not as Evanston, but as a way of mobilizing swing counties or swing areas, swing suburbs in the Chicago area. Anyhow, what we're talking about here with the DMAR litigation is something that goes way beyond our school district, important as that is to all of us.
Thank you for bringing that up. I hadn't quite made the connection to like how many locations close to us that this was also happening. So I appreciate that information.
The database, like I said, goes way beyond anything that is related to the DMAR litigation. But there, I have seen, I don't know how many emails related to one particular incident in Ohio where I think it was in Ohio, where a teacher resigned tearfully and in a very carefully polished speech that was where she said that she had to resign because what the school district was doing was contrary to her Christian beliefs. And that's something that's it's all over the place. You're constantly getting links to that one incident, that one teacher in the one school district, as if it were a national issue. So that's where we're going.
Thank you, Elaine, for the update.
JC?
Yes,
I'm sorry, I know this is off topic, but can I just quickly introduce Brandon?
please do.
Okay. Hi, Brandon. Thank you for joining us. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Brandon, oh, he's gone. Okay, well, I'll tell you who he is. So Brandon had interviewed for the REDI secretary position months ago when I first put it out. And then he also interviewed with us for the office assistant position. Lovely guy. So I invited him to come tonight just to listen in and see what we do in the meetings. And if he feels like the position is something he wants to tackle, then he's gonna step in as the REDI secretary. So, so then JC, for you, if you don't mind, just like tonight when we do roll calls and things like that, just like maybe make a note for Brandon to like, this is something you would do.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Brandon, all you have to do is hang out and listen and that's it. Thanks.
Have we heard anything from Iden?
She said that Patrick was running a little bit late tonight, and so she just needed to wait for him to get home to jump on.
Okay. Okay. So other than I'm not, I don't know if Iden has read Elaine's statement. But we can always chat about this at the next meeting also. For some reason, Iden doesn't make it in time. But I personally am good to go in terms of, voting on recommending the statement that Elaine has recommended. I don't know if we have plans on voting on that tonight or if that's even something we need to vote on.
Can I ask a question about it?
Yes.
What are we doing with the statement?
There are statements that are going along with the petition.
Okay. Do you put that statement in when you sign it? Or is there like a wall or something that we're writing it on? Like where do we share that?
That's a very good question.
There is a location where the other statements that have already been issued are viewable, and so we would be adding ours to that.
Right. Was that, it's been a little while since I looked at it. Was it on the actual petition?
Well, I know that when you originally
Yes.
sent it to us, I think it was two separate links. I can't remember either whether that meant it was two different places where those things were located. I can search for that email.
Natalie, that's a good question. I didn't think through the logistics of it. Sure.
I'm just curious. I didn't know if it was something that like when you sign, you have the option of like adding a note, or like if we were wanting to like post this somewhere or put it on the website. I wasn't sure what we had in mind for it, what the plans were for it.
I mean, I personally think that, you know, we attach it to the petition in whichever way that we're allowed to do that. And I think that we post it on Facebook and, you know, on the website and stuff.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion. I don't know if you all feel different.
So we'll take, so if, I don't know if we need to vote on it or not, but we would take it to the next board meeting, right? And have the board give their blessing, and then we would just go ahead and sign and post it as needed.
Yes.
Cool.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm looking back at an email from Natalie. And so okay. This actually went to the board. So I'm not sure, JC, if you shared this with the committee separately. I feel like you did, but this is the first email that popped up where Natalie linked us to the complaint itself. So that's hosted on something called slfliberty.org. And that's where you can view a 34-page, I think, PDF of the complaint itself. And that was one of the things that Elaine reviewed. And then the petition is hosted somewhere called strongertogetherevanston.com. And if you go to that link, which is basically, I think, just /petition is all you have to enter. It should pull up a page that says a statement of support for anti-racism initiatives in Evanston/Skokie School District. And if you scroll down, it's sort of like, we, the undersigned District 65 parents, caregivers, and community members, support District 65's anti-racism initiatives, et cetera, et cetera. That's like the statement that we're all signing on to. Then if you scroll down and you see the businesses and organizations that are issuing their support of this, some of them have a hyperlinked bracketed, statement that you can click. It's literally just the word statement after their name. So Beth Emmett is on there. Evanston Skokie PTA Council is on there. Haven Middle School. I'm just highlighting some of the people who actually have a statement linked to their company name or organization name. And then if you click it, it shows you the specific wording that they put in. So
does it look like the link is taking you to like their website, or does it look like it's just taking you to a generic, like, here's the word, here's the statement?
That's a good question. It's let me see what it's. Yeah, so it's still the website strongertogetherevanston.com
okay
/support/ and then this one, for instance, says # Oakton, or # Oakton after the rest of the URL. And that means that that link is specific to Oakton PTA's statement. If you go back and click somebody else's, same thing, it takes you to Evanston Community Foundation's statement, within that same website.
So it sounds like when you sign the petition, there will be an option to add a statement, as opposed to like an option to add a link to your website, where then they would go to like Ridgeville's website to read the statement. That's
correct. It's all it all seems to be hosted in the strongertogetherevanston.com website. Yeah,
perfect, great.
And Natalie, you're the one who sent that out to the board, but as to whether anyone sent that out to our REDI committee, I don't know. So I'm gonna keep looking and see if I can.
Not that I'm aware of. I sent that to the board per JC's request when I was putting the agenda together.
Right. Okay, and JC, yeah. So, I mean, I think that's probably a good idea, that we just link the rest of the committee to those same two things, which is the website that's hosting the complaint, I think in its entirety, itself, and then also the link to where we will be adding our statement. And I think you guys were just answering this part separately, so I might have missed this while I was searching my email, but it was my understanding from our last board meeting that we as a committee had said that to the board that we would draft a statement and come back to them with it as a recommendation of what we would say, or what we're asking the board to officially say in conjunction with them signing the statement of support.
Yeah, that's what I remember too.
Yes, agreed. So do we need to vote on? Yes, Elaine? Yeah, we do?
Yes.
Okay. Does somebody want to make a motion? Do we vote without Iden, right? We have a quorum?
Yeah.
Okay.
I, Natalie Salee, will make a motion that we recommend the statement as written by Elaine to the board to submit in addition to signing the petition.
So can I make a suggestion real quick? I'm sorry to jump in the middle of your motion. What if we suspend this vote until after the interviews, so that Iden can vote with us if she comes? Just giving her because we could always go ahead with the vote without her towards the end of the meeting as well if she doesn't show up, but this way she's got the opportunity to vote with us.
I like that idea. Is that okay, Natalie and Elaine? Is that okay with you? Or we can always do it next week too, if she doesn't make it to tonight's meeting.
That's true, because that's still before the board meeting. That's a good point.
Okay. So do you remove your motion? Do you?
Yes.
I think she does need to withdraw it technically, yeah.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay, so do you want to, do we have to table it if we're pushing it till later in the meeting?
I don't think so. I don't know if there's any, you can make a motion to move the vote perhaps to the end of the agenda, just like we would perhaps, sometimes we make a motion to move something up the agenda in order to execute it sooner than it's otherwise listed in the order. But I don't know. I haven't seen that done. I've seen us move stuff up. I haven't seen us move stuff down. Do you know, Elaine, if that would require a motion in a second to do that?
No, I think it's fine to do it, to withdraw it and reassert it. It should be fine.
Okay.
I think so.
I'll say again, I'm no parliamentarian.
Oh, clearly I'm not either. I'm much more a fly by the seat of my pants kind of gal. Okay, we have 5 minutes before the consultants from the YW are going to be joining us. In case you didn't get a chance to either read or understand the email, they're going to have 2 consultants. And who's the third person, Natalie?
So I reached out to Tiffany McDowell from the Y Equity Institute, and she had connected me with Carol Jungman, who is part of the Equity Institute as well. And I told Carol a little bit about what we were looking for. And so I guess the way that they're doing it, and again, the Equity Institute is also 2 years further along now, in the same way that we are 2 years further along now. So I guess the way they're doing it now is that they are kind of connecting the organizations with consultants. So it's not necessarily the Y working with us. There's partnership opportunities, obviously, with the YW, but they're really kind of bringing people together and helping facilitate connections in that way. So, which I didn't know until after I had talked to Carol. So she reached out to me, I think yesterday, and said, I have 2 consultants that I'd like you to meet. And I had gotten back to her and said, maybe one could come at 6:30, one could come at 7. And she said 7:00 worked for both of them. They're both going to come talk to us today at 7. There's an option of working with one or the other, or they would be willing to work together with us assuming that it works within our budget. So just something to keep in mind as you're listening to them answer questions and talk. That can be part of our discussion next week, is if they're contenders that people are interested in moving ahead with, either as individuals or as a team would be an option with this first round. Does that all make sense?
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that explanation.
And then just to tell you also, hold on. So Carol. Okay, so the two consultants that we're meeting today are Rena Campbell. Rena creates comfortable environments for open dialogue and interactive workshops for your diversity, equity, inclusion mission. She has over 20 years of experience consulting and customizing curricula to meet the needs of professionals and students. And then the second one that we're meeting today is Tracy Olasimbo. Tracy is an advocate for equity in education, a master facilitator, and a curriculum developer. She has developed and implemented professional sessions for educators and community partners and supported under-resourced schools. So those are the two consultants that we're going to talk to at 7. And then at 7:30, Corey Wallace is coming to talk to us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for setting all this up and for doing all the back and forth that you've done so far. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
And then I don't know if you got a chance to see that chart that I put together, but I'll be just plugging in everyone's responses so we can, felt like it would facilitate our discussion next week to have that information all together. Okay, well, the people from the YW should be joining us soon. Hopefully Ida will be too.
Yeah. And I know that JC mentioned this in her email, and I had recommended that she do this, but she's going to ask, in the same way that we do with Dr. Logan, we have less time tonight with these
thank
folks. You. So JC is really she's going to ask the questions. If we have anything additional that we want to ask them, I would suggest either typing it to JC in the chat, or, letting them know that we might reach out with some further questions after the meeting.
Thank you for bringing that up, Natalie. I also was going to let them know that if they felt like there was more stuff that they wanted to share with us, they could get back in touch, since it's possible that we'll be limited on time.
Yeah. And same with Corey. I think she has a 30-minute window as well. So we should try to wrap her up at 8:00.
Okay.
I have a question as well along the lines of following up with people. How would you all feel about JC or Natalie compiling a list of the contact information for everyone that we will have interviewed by the end of this, in order for any of us who might choose to follow up with them with any additional questions, given that we won't have another chance to meet with them nor to talk as a group until our next planned meeting, which is the executive session where we're planning to pick that person. So I don't know if anyone opposes the idea that if any of us on an individual basis want to follow up with any of these people to question them, that's something that we could do.
That's fine. I'm happy to send it to you. I don't have direct contact information for the first two consultants we'll be talking to tonight, but I can certainly get it. Carol's here. Hi, Carol.
Hey, Carol.
I'm sure Carol would be able to send that to me as well. So I'll compile that for everybody.
Okay. Thanks, Natalie.
I'll just be in the background taking notes as needed for Tracy and Rena. So.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, sure. Natalie, we've met before.
Yeah, we took a little theater class together.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
It's good to see you.
You were teaching then, right?
My friend Pam taught that one. And I was participating because it's fun and I wanted to do it. But
yeah, it was really fun.
It was fun. Thank you for coordinating with me, Carol, and helping reach out to some consultants.
Happy to. And I don't know if any of you were in the Racial Healing Circle back in January of 2020.
Yeah.
I did that along with Gia Johnson. Mm-hmm. It was before the pandemic, so we were in person in the big space. So that was good.
Yeah.
We probably had about 20 people there. It was
It was a good sized group.
yeah, community based, community invite. So,
Yeah.
so you 4 or 5 are the REDI committee?
There are 5 of us. Brandon, who's here in the meeting, is watching. He might become our secretary. So he's getting a feel for what we do. We have one member who's not here right now, but she's hopefully going to join us at some point this evening.
Great.
So Carol, just to introduce you to everyone real fast, that is Martha in the red shirt. She is also the Ridgeville board president. Elaine is enveloped in flowers. She's another committee member. And I'm JC, I'm the chair of the committee. And we're excited to meet who you bring to us today and see what they have to offer.
And, I would be happy to sort of answer any general questions about, the YWCA Equity Institute, and some of the different things that we do. I mean, I think you're all fairly familiar with the YW, as opposed to the YM. But if you have any, general questions about our work, I'm happy to answer those questions. Some of you also might have met Eileen Hogan Heineman. She, I think, was the person that arranged for the Racial Healing Circle long ago. She's a member of Skokie community, but does a lot, has been I think 10 years with the Y. So
our staff and board have done, I think, between all of us, all of your workshops, multiples of them. So we are well familiar with Eileen.
Great. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. Thank you.
This is Tracy Simbo. She is also a Evanston Public Library person and Ridgeville, what would you call it, district area person. One of our consultants. And then Rena is just getting on as well. Hi, Rena.
Oh, hello. There we are.
Hey there.
Sorry, I couldn't find the email. It was on the one that got hacked. And anyway, so I'm glad I made it, but I'm sorry I'm a little late.
No worries. Well, we're really happy to have you all with us today. We are the Racial Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Committee. We do have one member, Iden, who is not with us. We're hoping she will pop in when she's available. I'll take a quick minute and introduce us on the screen. Natalie is the program director at Ridgeville. Martha is the board president at Ridgeville. Elaine and I are both community members. I'm also the chair of the committee. And I also am employed at Ridgeville. I have done summer camp in the past. I run workshops and such over there. And my kids have attended programming. So we will, we're going to stay on time. I don't want to take up too much of your all's time. And, we do have someone else that we're going to be speaking with at 7:30. But if you could, Rena and Tracy, if you could each just take a minute to tell us a little bit about yourselves and, what brings you to this work.
Yeah. So what brings me to the work, I think essentially there was a big shift for me when I gave birth to my 9-year-old son. And so raising a young Black man in this world is kind of what triggered me to kind of just become more aware, become more prepared, which then also kind of lends to learning a lot more things and learning more about systems and structures and even preparing and getting him ready for school and education and determining where and how where I could send him, where should I move to, all that kind of stuff. And so alongside with, in my past, I worked with Ingenuity, which is a nonprofit that supports arts education for Chicago public schools. And so I got to see the real difference between the schools on the north side or downtown versus the school on the southwest side. And so there's a lot of inequities, structurally, systematically, that impact what happens to our kids in the school system. And so from there, I developed Ingenuity's first 7-part series around race, education, diversity, and inclusion, with a focus on arts education. That's what we kind of focused on there. And so that was everything from like trauma-informed teaching practices to how to work with your teaching artists or classroom teachers with regards to equity in your program, to understanding your biases and what that means within the society that you are a part of. To when my son got to school age, I was PTA president. I was able to work with our team to make some big shifts to consider equity and be more equitable and race conscious. I also facilitate with the Anti-Defamation League. I am part of Next Steps Planning Committee and a facilitator, which is another like family parent group who provides race and equity training to District 65 families, staff, administrators, and community members. In the past year, we did a cohort model focusing on helping school cohorts pick practice, policy, or program that is racist, and how do we kind of shift that to be anti-racist. And so it's kind of like a step-by-step process, transformation, check-in. I also work with another colleague with Sprint to Equity, and that's another organization we kind of founded to offer supports within education, religious, and professional spaces around changing systems and structures to be more equitable. I don't know, I feel like that's a lot, so I'll stop there. I'll pass it off to Rena.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I have to say, I encouraged Tracy to come on board at the Anti-Defamation League, where I had been the associate director in the educational department. And then after having small children, I was a contracted facilitator for the same group. And so I've been doing this work for over 20 years. But honestly, when I met Tracy and I just saw how much she was just doing, just because it's so important to her, I was blown away. So even though she's kind of more recently come to this work, you'd never have any idea because she's just doing so much good work. And I am from Evanston, believe it or not. I have taken classes at Ridgeville. My kids have taken classes at Ridgeville. I am biracial. I am Asian American, though I present white, and therefore I have white privilege. And so I've been working with, thousands of students over many years. I did a lot of anti-bullying and bullying prevention and cyberbullying prevention work in schools all over the Midwest. And I actually trained all of the trainers for the Anti-Defamation League to, nationally, to go out and roll out their anti-bias education. But the last 3 years, I've really been focused on managing implicit bias for law enforcement. So I was a part of the team that was working with the Chicago Police Department under the consent decree. And that was some of the hardest and most challenging and most promising work I've done in many, many years. And so I do feel like, I've worked with so many schools and so many different groups over many years. But the kind of, I think, organizational, sort of assessment that you are in the thick of at Ridgeville, that's the kind of thing that I've been wanting to do more of. And honestly, Tracy and I were talking, like, we would love to tag team this. I think being bicultural and biracial and all of what that lends to, and being neighbors, we both feel very strongly to see Ridgeville succeed in really addressing the inequities that have perpetuated over many years. And you're not alone. Unfortunately, this is the challenge, right? And I keep saying it is 2021 and we know better, so we have to do better. And I feel strongly that by working through our conflicts come our best opportunities for learning and growth. I think we've all had experiences where we've been in even interpersonal relationships where there was a terrible conflict. And when you work through that, that's when you can actually really start to grow, right? And it strengthens the relationship. But oftentimes people will stop before they get to that point because it's just too hard, really. And so I feel like, you know, whoever you bring on, you want a partner that really is going to challenge you. Because if you're not willing to really critically examine the inequities, you will just continue to perpetuate them. And that's just sadly the pattern.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. We absolutely agree with that. You know, there's a lot of discussion in this work, the difference between, you know, creating a diverse environment and actually working for equity, and the difference between what that looks and feels like. And you know, we are very passionate about making sure that we are making these long-term, you know, institutional based changes that are going to truly not only make a difference, but then, you know, have some longevity behind it too. So you both answered a few of our questions in there with those wonderful answers, and I really appreciate that. Tracy, I was curious, have you ever attended programming at Ridgeville, or do you know, have any other experience with the Park District?
Not with Ridgeville, no. Unfortunately, the time slots never really worked for us and my work schedule and stuff. So I didn't have, I'm a single mom, so I didn't have childcare or someone to pick him up before I got off of work and whatnot. So, but I learned about it. I look at the magazine often, and there's some really cool things happening. I just have to figure out a way to make it work. Or
I hear you. I honestly, I do have that same problem. I was just looking at the catalog today, like, oh, if I could just, you know, Natalie, can we ship that?
yeah.
But I mean, to be honest, just, you know, the fact that you even know about us and look at the catalog, I think, because that's, you know, something that we struggle with. A lot of people don't really know who we are. But so from both of your point of view and from what you do know about us, what would your vision be for an equitable park district? Like, what would that look like?
Do you want to go first or should I go first?
I'll just give my short response is what you just heard from Tracy is exactly what you need to be looking at, because I think this isn't the first time you've heard that is a real issue, you know. So when you want to, you know, diversify, you know, your population that you're serving, and, you know, and people that are bringing the programs to them, if we're not really grounded in, you know, that vision of being equitable, we're going to keep picking time slots and instructors and classes that work for whatever model we've worked with before. And you really need to like completely deconstruct that and think about who are the populations that you're not serving, and why is it that they cannot participate, and what are those barriers. And so really, like, even though I have more experience and I know more firsthand what Ridgeville's offerings are, I think what Tracy brings to this is far more important, because that's the population you really need to be thinking about and figuring out how to meet their needs. I think on my, you know, personal opinion.
I agree. I mean, to piggyback off of that, I think access is really, really important. Access to just the information about you all, right? And so if people don't know about Ridgeville and it's been around for so long, why is it that they are unaware of Ridgeville and what they offer, right? Why are some community members unaware that there is a camp program that their kids can go to, that y'all have scholarships, that you have an array of different opportunities? Why is it that folks that do need that are unaware of that? And I think it's also about cultural competency, right? Making sure that the folks that are around look like the kids that are going to be there, the kids that you want to be there. Make sure that kids and families get to engage in things and activities and programs that are of interest of them as well. And so, yeah, that's kind of some of the things that I'm also working on with the library and like with other boards and things that I'm on, kind of trying to make sure that we being culturally inclusive. And that doesn't, you know, are your programs and brochures translated? Does everybody have access to that information, right? Can our population that doesn't read English very well also be able to read your brochure and know about your programs and whatnot? So those are like, just may seem like not such big things, but are big enough that you can make those shifts, can also open up who you're talking to, who you're building relationships with, who you're building community with. So.
Thank you. Yeah, that outreach piece is something that we are, very much looking towards doing and making sure that we're having that back and forth with the community. So we're getting that information and making those changes accordingly. Were either one of you able to, did you receive the list? We have a little bit of a list of things that we were hoping to accomplish. I was curious if you did have a chance to look at that, if that is along the lines of, things that you would be able to help us out with. We're a couple years into this journey. We're, I would say, a little bit wiser than we were not that long ago, but not by much. But we do have an idea of what we want to get to work on. So I was curious what you all thought of that long laundry list of items.
And I just want to apologize. I was in an all-day training and I literally got off and got a glass of water before, and hopefully walked my dog long enough so he's going to be quiet, but before I got on this. And so Tracy and I had actually put some things together, but we couldn't combine and send our bios. For example, we can send those after the call, just to give you a little bit more sort of detail of what I've done personally. But certainly, I feel like there are really sort of 3 phases to what I think your goals are. And the first is the discovery phase. So Tracy, I don't know if you want to talk to that, because I know you spent a lot of time on that with Race to Equity or Sprint to Equity as well, putting that together. But so I kind of see these sort of like 3 compartments. So there's that discovery and, assessment phase and planning. And then there's the actual like training and education that has to happen. And then there's kind of like really finding out how to put into structure systems that will continue to, review and evolve and constantly challenge, and keep you on top of, really using an equity lens to do all of your work. But yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy. That sort of.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a few steps in the process. Like again, starting off or beginning with the discovery phase. So having conversations with different stakeholders, and that's from like board members to admin to staff to even, community members that engage in your programming, and just kind of reviewing and assessing all of that. And then coming back, having a conversation with you all based on that, based on your mission and vision and what you all see as your work, and even more specifically, having a good understanding of where you are currently with your work and where it is that you want to go. Then we are able to develop a strategic plan. And I like to call it an anti-racist strategic plan, right? So as long as we have equity and anti-racism at the forefront, right, then we can make sure for the most part that we are doing the things that we should be doing. And then with that strategic plan, then we kind of just go into action and identifying the systems of inequalities and coming up with strategies to address that. And then we kind of just end with establishing like a baseline of where we are and where we're trying to go in a system of how to evaluate that. And then along with that should come with some training for staff and board members or admin. And then just kind of checking in and from that end report and seeing what we've done for the next year, we kind of do the same cycle over again and figure out what needs to be addressed again.
And I think Tracy would agree, if we do our job right, you don't need us forever, because once you really are steeped in it, you realize there is no end and that there's no graduation and there's no certificate at the end that says you're done. You will want to continue doing the self-work in order to be able to continue informing how you do the work within the community. And I think it just becomes a really rewarding and sort of like self-guided study. And so I think part of, the question is within your budget, there's, I don't know how many hours. I was going to ask you how many hours usually would take up, attending meetings and, just sort of observing any other, special board meetings. because that could really eat up your time pretty quickly. And so how to point you to other resources that you can go to for the training components that don't cost as much, or that you could get kind of a, the Y has all these ongoing programs that you can kind of get a, negotiate a group rate so that your staff is kind of picking and choosing which pieces they have, the time and ability to participate in, and then like sharing that out, coming up with kind of a structure for like learning partners and sharing that with the group so that you're not all having to do everything all together, because it gets very expensive when you have to sort of take everybody away from their jobs in order to do these trainings. So that's one of my questions in terms of your budget. And, is that something that you're going to look forward to renewing, or, putting in a line item in the future so that you're continually doing?
So as of right now, there has been an equity line item in the budget for the last few years, and the plan is to continue to have that in there. Not only for consultants, but for trainings and for, other events that the Park District can host to help, facilitate that work. In terms of meetings, our REDI committee meetings are twice a month. Have been doing a bit of a better job or tightening things up a bit and getting our meetings to about, an hour and a half or so. Because we are, a committee of the Park District, we do have to follow the Open Meetings Act. So in terms of us meeting and getting together, we're a little more constricted than you might experience if you were working with like a school district or something along those lines. Since we have those, restrictions that we have to deal with. And then there would be times that we would hope the consultant would attend the board meetings if necessary, for example, if we're going to be asking. So let me back up a little bit. So we are the Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. We are not a decision-making body, right? So anything that we think would be important for the Park District, we have to propose that to the board, and the board has to choose to take it on. Okay. So there may be board meetings, for example, to explain, we've already adopted an equity lens, but that was an example of a time when, a consultant could have been there to explain, how that goes, since I'm not the expert in that area. So we wouldn't necessarily need somebody at every board meeting. I attend the board meetings and I report out what we've done as a committee. But I would imagine there might be a meeting here or there that we would want to have you all at, depending on what's being discussed and how much, knowledge is really needed to be given to the board, that I might not be, the best person to do that. Does that answer that question a little bit?
Yes. Yeah.
Let's see, we have about 5 minutes left. I would assume, in terms of, we are well aware that we need more training. We, feel that the board should be going through yearly training. The committee should be. We also have 2 new board members that have come on that we feel should also go through training. And so, as you had mentioned, in terms of the cost saving, your recommendation would be more along the lines of us finding other, you would help us find other places in the community for us to kind of fill in the holes and the gaps and do the retraining and refreshing that we would need, as opposed to having that be led by the 2 of you. Is that correct?
I guess it just really depends, right, Tracy, in terms of, how much time the sort of intake and assessment and strategic planning takes up. Because depending on how many, people there are to, do those interviews and so forth, that can eat up a lot of time. So I was just kind of thinking ahead, where else could you sort of find some of the resources that you could continue working with, if it weren't. And that's really, training is my specialty. That's what I do more often than not. But the consulting piece, right, it takes time. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you are aware, but we were working with a consultant previously. So we do, not that we wouldn't have it redone, but we do have, an assessment and, report and all that we have had in the past, just, as information for you all to have.
It's good to know.
In terms of how you all envision working with the committee, what would you see your role and what kind of relationship would you have with the committee? Would I be getting some input in terms of, what I should be putting on the agenda? If there's any additional trainings that I should be going through as chair of the committee? How do you kind of envision that relationship with the committee as a whole and with myself in particular as the chair?
I feel like there should be an open communication line. So having those conversations about what we're discovering through the discovery phase, which will also help us determine what it is that we would need or suggest for you all to do. So whether, through the discovery phase, we may say, hey, maybe there's some implicit bias training that needs to be taking place like right now. Maybe we should maybe we should talk to the team about X, Y, and Z, or this policy that's in place currently at the next committee meeting. So I just think it a line of open communication, but we would be communicating about what the findings that we have and what our suggestions are based on those findings and help you through that process.
Excellent.
Yeah, I agree with Tracy. And I would add that I work with a lot of different groups, and I find that when feedback gets too real and it gets, hard, it can be very easy to kind of like shut down and move along and, not take time to process some things. And so another one of my mottos is we got to love feedback, right? Because if we're really open to, if we're committing to having equitable organizations and being, anti-racist individuals, we have to be open to that feedback, as hard as it can get. And so I try to just make it, a very comfortable tone to give and receive feedback. And like Tracy said, communication is key. And not everybody communicates the same way. So part of that discovery process is really figuring out how people prefer to communicate. Are you walk up and talk to my face person? Are you a text? Are you an email? Like there's just so many different ways. And if my way doesn't, sort of gel with your way, there can be miscommunications just in missing some of those marks, right? So my email got hacked. I missed a whole bunch of emails and people were really worried and I didn't even know it. So, that was a problem. But I think just in terms of, I work with a lot of white affinity groups as well. And again, because I present white, I can speak to that. And I do feel like, when especially we're talking with boards or with people who, the decision-making power lies within, there's a resistance to hearing some of the hard truths. And so I'm always trying to kind of like, just without coddling people, reassure them, you're going to be okay, but we need to work through this. And so we need to be really open and honest about what are the outcomes here that look inequitable, because that's what we have to be focusing on in order to, back up over here. So that's kind of how I operate.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. Real change comes from discomfort, right? Like this is where we're going to make this, what we're learning turn into actual change and new behaviors. I want to thank you both so much for taking time to meet with us tonight. I would love to, take a look at your bios. If you have any other questions that you want to ask us, or as, Martha had asked earlier, right before you all were hopping on, if we can get some contact information, if we have any, further questions for any of you, that would be really helpful. And thank you so much. We're all really excited for this next chapter of our journey. And it was really excited to meet you both. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for your time. And Martha, it's good to see you. I know that when you started, you were looking down this road, and I actually think I was completely consumed with police work at that time. So I kind of wasn't able to figure out how I could help you. So I'm glad to hear that you're sticking with it and that you're still on the right road.
Yeah, definitely. I remember we talked as well, and I can't remember exactly how or why it ended, but we're all on, all kinds of journeys. Equity work is one of the journeys that we're all hopefully on, or, if not, starting it soon for some people. And, there's all kinds of journeys, right? Parenting journeys for those of us who have kids, career journeys for those of us who are working. So, no worries. I think I don't even remember if like you stopped responding to me or I stopped responding to you, but I remember we were going over some of the context of equity work at Ridgeville and the future of that. So it's great to see you again, and thanks again for coming to talk to us today.
Thank you.
So, all right. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Up next is Corey Wallace.
Yes. I'm taking notes for myself.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, if I'm looking down at my device, it's because I'm taking notes.
I am going to take notes on this before our meeting too, and I'll get it out to you guys. Hi, Corey.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I am JC Herman. I am the chair of the Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. I'll take a quick minute to introduce you to everybody. Natalie is the program director at the Park District. Martha is the board president. Elaine and I are both community members on the committee. And then I also wear some other hats. I do summer camp sometimes. I also have taught some workshops. My kids have gone there, so I've got some, do some other things there also. Thank you so much for meeting with us today. We're excited to have this conversation. I've heard about your work with District 65, so I'm excited to get to know you a little bit better. Do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. And if you have any questions, just interrupt. I mean, I am born and raised in Skevinston, Evanston, used to be Skokie Hospital, went through the schools, went through District 65 and 202, and went off to University of Michigan, came back and started my teaching career, teaching Spanish at ETHS. And I was there until my second child was born. I was home with my kids and then lived overseas in Asia. When our kids were 2, 4, and 6, we went there for work. And it was amazing, very humbling experience learning about diversity. So, I mean, Evanston's known for its diversity, but really learning about it beyond sort of the black-white binary and learning about all the, the stereotypes that I had and biases around even what Asian languages sounded like and all of that. And then came back in 2007 and in 2008 ran the Parent Center. Oh my goodness, sorry. Ran the a parent center at Niles Township, which is the neighboring communities of like Skokie, Morton Grove, Lincolnwood, and Niles. So they had one of the largest immigrant and refugee populations outside of Chicago. And I was helping English learner adults learn how to support their children in schools. And did that for 5 years and then went to be the first equity director at Niles North and Niles West. So did that before George Floyd and everything. Like I've been doing this for a long time before that. And then the past now 6 years, I've been working independently with various organizations, school-based and business-based, and really any entity that wants to do deep work beyond just, an international potluck, which we all love. Everybody likes good food, but that doesn't solve the problems that we have when it comes to racial disparities and the other different, pieces connected to identity. So that's sort of in a nutshell how I got to where I am right now.
Thank you. Yes, we this comes up a lot, right? When talking about diversity, the difference between, having, or the difference between diversity and equity. And we are very committed to making sure that what we're doing is based on equity and not just on diversity, and making sure that what we're doing is going to be something that will live way beyond our committee and, our roles here, and, beyond having a consultant, to have it just be a part of who Ridgeville is. What's your experience with Ridgeville? Have you ever attended any programming? Have your kids? What kind of experience have you had?
Years ago, what I remember most is taking my kids when they were very young to
this guy, he was like, there was some entertainment thing for kids. I want to say it was like a jump rope guy or something. I don't know, but like it was some, family friendly programming that I took my kids to when they were young. But I passed it a million times, but didn't really know the story until we talked, a couple of weeks ago when we first talked about, this potential collaboration. And that's when I realized that it's its own entity separate from, the Evanston Park District, which I thought was really interesting.
Yes, that's one of our challenges, is that a lot of people don't know who we are, that we are a separate taxing body. There's a lot of things, in my opinion, that makes Ridgeville unique, and aside from, tax dollars and all that sort of stuff. But that is definitely one of our challenges in terms of outreach with the community, is that a lot of people just don't even really know who we are. So that's something that we, would be looking for a little bit of help with. Without really knowing who we are, but kind of speaking generally, what would you see an equitable park district being? What would your vision be for an equitable park district?
Yeah, I think it would be one where people are understanding of the range of people that are out there, right? And so there's a lot of just indicators in terms of how things are communicated in the community. Like if there are particular language groups that are there, having things readily available in languages that people can access, having staff available. If I know that I have a lot of Polish speakers or Gujarati or Spanish speakers, then I'm going to have someone there who speaks that language on Thursday mornings or whatever. And then people know, okay, if I come on Thursday mornings, there's someone there who could speak my language, right? Making sure that, all different levels of identity are addressed. So, restrooms, like naming them as bathrooms and just having space for people to go to the restroom and making sure they're accessible to folks with various levels of ability, right? If somebody has a caretaker and, those are the types of things that just indicate that all people are truly welcome in terms of physical space setup and just communication of how things are communicated with other folks.
That can be very challenging in a building of however many hundreds of years old, but is something that has come up, and we really would like to address the best of our possibilities or abilities. I'm not sure if you had a chance, if you received the list of actionable items that we were hoping.
I saw something this afternoon, but I've been in like back-to-back meetings really since about 4:00, so I hadn't had a chance to look at it.
No worries. We got it out to you, a little bit of a short notice.
Okay.
But so just to give you an idea. So we've been working with a consultant for a few years. We have, a little bit of work and training under our belts. But we also, are far enough into this to have an idea of where we would like to go. So to give you an idea, and I won't read the whole list because you'll be able to do that later, and you can feel free to, contact us with any questions that you might have. But essentially what we're looking to do is we're really looking to review policies, procedures, the charter, to make sure that all that language is as it should be, reflecting the equity that we believe exists at Ridgeville already, but we want that to be reflective in those documents. We do have an equity lens that we would like to review. We never received any training on it, so that would be a really important thing for us to do. We want to have systems and such in place that we are doing evaluations on a regular basis, so that we are making sure that we are doing what we're saying what we're going to do, and really making sure that we're doing the best that we can with the different goals that we have. And then we'd also be looking for our consultant to be available at our meetings. We are not a decision-making body. We are a committee, so we make recommendations to the board. And we are also, we have to follow the Open Meetings Act. So it's a little bit different from working with a group of teachers where you can just kind of meet whenever with, whatever rules you want. So our meetings take place on the first and third Thursdays of the month, usually start around 6:30. We're getting better about our time management, so lasting about an hour and a half or so. And then there'd also be, particular board meetings that we would probably need our consultant to be at, to explain things that would be beyond my scope of, knowledge and understanding. And then you can, look at the more detailed list when you have a chance. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to get in touch. In what ways do you see engaging, since that's something that we're really looking to do, in what ways do you see engaging the community to be really effective? There's social media, there's the email blast, there's town hall, there's interviews. What in your experience have you found to be really useful?
I mean, it really depends on who your community is, right? So, immediately when we talked last time, there's someone that I a lot of the work that I do, I work with other folks because I know that in this work, I only hold so many identities. And so it's important to bring in other perspectives according to who the population is. And so similarly, there's a particular person that I have in mind that I've done a lot of work with who lives in that community where you all are at and has been there a long time. And so I would think drawing upon folks like that in the community and just getting out, right? So like, who are the people that are walking by that, just being a presence. And I'll give you an example. Like when I was at the Parent Center, I was serving 18 different schools, 10 different school districts. So that means you have to go to these different, like when they would have an open house or whatever. You all are nice because you have these various parks. So and I think there's like 6, how many are there different besides just Ridgeville?
7.
Sorry, 7. So I think like having, really having being in those different spaces and thinking about who are the people that live in those spaces and how do you really get out and connect with the people who are in the neighborhood. So that requires a lot of just on the ground folks who are there on a regular basis. And then who's walking by that just never comes in, sometimes you've got to go to like, if there's everyone eats, like this sounds sort of basic, but like where are people shopping and buying their food and putting advertising like old school flyers, things up in those spaces where people go to the store, right? Because then they'll know, oh, this is what's going on at this park, right? Or in this space. So it really is tailored to whoever the people are in the community. And so there's not a checklist, if you will, other than really finding out who the people are and meeting people where they are and providing programming that addresses those needs. And then that's interesting to people, right? Because people will do things that are meaningful to them. I'm not going to come to some program because we've all got a million things to do if it's not a good use of my time, right? So I think the quality is important and also just the content to make sure that it's relevant to what the needs are. And those needs may be different, right? Because 7 different, geographic locations, there's going to be a variety there. So being able to tailor to each space, I think is also important, but having like some threads of inclusivity and outreach amongst the 7.
Yeah, we kind of, in a way, have an advantage in that sense that we have these different locations that we can kind of branch out from. But so being a native Evanstonian, do you find this work being easier or more difficult in Evanston?
It's tricky. It depends where you are. I mean, Evanston's got a lot of different, that's the thing. Like people say Evanston, but there's so many, where in Evanston, right? There's a lot of just variety here. So I think what's probably the most difficult thing about Evanston is because it's known for its diversity. There's this sense that like, oh, there can't be any problems or any discrimination, or that happens over there somewhere. And I think so sometimes we feel like we're further ahead. And that's true for me too, right? So, when I was growing up and my dad is Black, my mom's white. So I'm like, oh, I am diversity. I have nothing to learn. And then going to Asia and realizing all of these things that I did have to learn, it's like, wait a minute, and so I think that's the hard piece about Evanston is this notion that like, oh, we are almost like we're better than, or we get it. And, we all have things to learn and there's always room for growth. And I appreciated what you said earlier about whatever you do with this work and whether it's me or another consultant you end up going with, I think building something that is going to be sustainable beyond the people on the committee, because people will change and committees will change and times will change. But if you can have policies and practices that are created in a way that if you're a part of the Ridgeville culture, it's really addressing that culture. Like what is the culture and how do you build practices and policies within that so that that's what it means to be a part of the Ridgeville culture, right? Is to be inclusive, to be asking the question, like, who's missing, what perspective is missing here? How can we bring that perspective in? And having that be a part of the everyday.
I would like to toot our horn a little bit. I feel like that's very much what we do in summer camp. That's one of the things that I absolutely adore about Ridgeville is that's the attitude. And, it really speaks to the importance of relationships, because a lot of the counselors at the summer camp were campers there too, and they bring up those memories of what it's like to be a kid and all that. So yeah, I mean, I very much agree with you in terms of doing this work in Evanston, and I think I can comfortably speak for all of us that that's why we wanted to be on this committee, and why we started this committee was to make sure that this wasn't something that was, I mean, we started this work before the events of last summer, but it wasn't that long before that, right? And we want to make sure that the work that we're doing is not a reaction to what's happening, but more a true understanding of there needs to be change, and that change needs to exist, well beyond us. In terms of your, relationship and how you work with, committees and such in consulting, what kind of, relationship could we expect? Would each committee member have direct communication with you? Would most of the communication happen through myself as the chair? Would I be getting support in terms of, what agenda items to be putting together, and, what possible trainings I particularly should go through? How do you envision that happening?
I'm really open. So I mean, if people want to work, as long as it's not like a huge committee, but I think
most of us are here. We're only missing one person.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we would do it collaboratively. I'm very much about I'm not a magic person, right? It has to be all of us together. And so we all have different interests and skill sets. For me, the biggest thing would be just making sure we're on the same page in terms of some foundational understanding. And I know you all worked with Dr. Effiam before, and so you've done some pieces. But again, just making sure we're on the same page, and then, just making sure that everybody's got, oars in the water, moving at the same direction. We're all at different places in terms of our learning and growing, and what we may be stronger at or have areas, to grow in. But as long as everybody's willing to move forward, that's to me what's most important. I'm very open. I'm very collaborative. I do better with text, phone call versus email. Just know that up front. I just overwhelmed with the sea of email, but yeah, I would just wanting to do the work collaboratively. And I will say, having done this work for as long as I have, there are certain patterns that I see. So, I hesitate to say expert, but I do know when there's certain things that are happening. If I see something and I'm like, yeah, I think we should do this. And then it typically will go the way, there's just patterns and things to look for. So I would do my best to just provide guidance along the way, and be really adaptive to the things that happen, because, the work that we're talking about doing, it's not like, oh, there's the air conditioner's broken, call the AC guy to fix it. There's no one to call to fix this, right? These are adaptive challenges that require adaptive solutions. So you have to be open to okay, we're going to try this. Okay, this didn't work, right? And so it sounds like what you said with the camp, that's one of the strong suits is you've got people who've had a really positive experience and connection to Ridgeville who are coming back, right? So as we talk to them, as we is there diversity there? Is there not? Why is that? Getting their feedback. I mean, it's really going to depend on, what that feedback tells us.
Yes. And of course, you'd be able to, tell us more, once you got to know us better.
Right.
When would you envision being able to begin this work? When, I know in terms of your, time frame and all that, when would you think be able to take us on?
Yeah, I wasn't sure with the timing, because I think you said Tuesday and Thursday nights. What nights did you say you meet?
Thursdays, the first and third Thursday.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I believe, I could talk to the committee if there was another schedule that would be better. This is just what we've been doing so far.
Okay.
I would imagine that we'd be able to be somewhat flexible.
Okay. Yeah, it's very oftentimes, I do teach at night, and I teach some classes and things. So I would say, and my schedule right now is sort of full, so it'd probably be
late fall or perhaps even in the beginning of January, like 2022, just because I have some commitments and I'm teaching a couple. I've never taught 2 classes at Northwestern. I usually teach 1 and they've asked me to teach 2. So that just takes my life to a whole nother place because it's just a lot. And those are in the evenings. So probably I would say January.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us? Is there anything else that you wanted to share that we didn't cover?
How long has this committee been in place?
2 years, 2.5 years.
Okay.
Is that right? No, not quite. My memory post COVID, it's either before COVID or after COVID.
So hard to know. I know. I took my daughter, she's a junior, but it's almost like she's a freshman because she was only here for 7 months. So it is weird.
I guess we are in our 2nd year. We started our training. We kind of formally came together at the beginning of 2020 and then did a whole series of training. And then with the committee, the staff, the board, and then it wasn't until like the beginning of this year that we tried to do some training and put together the equity lens, but we didn't get very far with that work. So we feel like babies, but we have been in a lot of training for a while. So it's just kind of like, we're like little fledglings that need help flying now.
I'm sorry. Can you hold on 1 second, please?
Absolutely. I like that we are little fledglings. We're not in the egg anymore.
Yeah.
Right? We were in the egg before. We came out of the egg and don't know what to do.
We hatched. You just need to be fed and taught to fly.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry.
No worries.
One other question that I do have is, would you all be open if there's someone that I know that could start a little earlier and that we could sort of tag team this? Would you be open to working collaboratively with someone else as well as part of it?
I think so.
Okay. I would have to check her schedule and see, but I can look into that too if you all wanted to start a little sooner.
We like Natalie said, I liked her analogy, right? Like we were in the egg, we hatched out of the egg, and now someone needs to teach us how to fly. But I do also feel like we've been idle for a little while, and I think that we're really, I think having the right fit is much more important. But we are, kind of chomping at the bit to get some work done and to get back to doing trainings and understanding the equity lens and all these things that we've had at our fingertips, but haven't quite been able to use yet.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, it's exciting. I mean, I think, the little that I have heard over the years about, Ridgeville, it's always been like top-notch, programming. So I'm excited just to know more of the intricacies behind it and just to help move it to the next level. So I think it's exciting that you all came together and are, staying the course and committed to moving forward. That's the will is the most important part, right? Having the will to do something and to stay at it.
I agree. I personally, I don't know. I might need a t-shirt that says like Ridgeville's biggest fan, because I absolutely love it. I think it's a really great community. Before even talk of this committee, I was in Natalie's office trying to figure out what we could do to reach out to the committee more or to the community more. Because there's things that I just, once you walk around and you see the lack of just in terms of skin color, right? And so that was something that Natalie and I kind of tried to put things together and without all that much success. So I'm personally really excited to see it grow into this and to see what we can grow into next. Because I would love to have Ridgeville be, what it is to me, to a lot of other people too.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah. So I think you got to dream and then make it happen. So I love that you have that and that other folks on the committee, are committed and willing to move to the next level. Now, are you all from Evanston? Where are people from?
I believe we all live within, well, except for Natalie. I think everyone else in the committee lives within the Ridgeville boundaries.
Okay.
I just live on the other side of Howard.
Oh, okay. Yep.
When I cross the street, I'm in Ridgeville.
Got it.
And I spend more time at the park than in my home. So technically, I do live at Ridgeville.
You start squeezing for your tax money. Well, Corey, thank you so much. If any other questions come up, please feel free to get in touch. If you don't mind, if Natalie shares your contact information with us in case we have any more questions for you.
Sure, no problem.
Appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll be speaking with you soon.
Sounds good. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, I kind of kept everything on time.
You did great, JC. You nailed it. It's 8. It's not even 8.
Well, my time timer for all you time challenged people. All right. Shall we?
Regarding the vote on the statement.
Oh, yes.
Since I didn't make it, and we can certainly wait until, if you want a unanimous REDI vote for that, then we can certainly wait. But I feel like we could probably go ahead and vote tonight if we just want to get it moved forward or whatever. I feel like we probably don't need to wait, but if we want a unanimous REDI committee team to do it, then we can push it to the next meeting.
I'm fine with moving on it too. I mean, I'm the one that suggested we wait for Iden, so I just wanted to be clear that I think it's fine to go ahead with a vote. Without her. I just figured if she was showing up to the meeting, we could wait. But I'm fine with voting now. I don't see any reason that we need to wait.
Okay.
Well, and a reason for moving forward is that way we could present it to the to the board to be looking at it and thinking about it before their meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, that would give them more time. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I mean, I don't want to speak for Iden, but I can't imagine that she would, vote against it, to be honest with you. So I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable doing this without her.
Well, yeah, and I guess that was my point, is that even if she did vote no, I think we still have to move it forward. So I think in the interest of time and getting it to the board, if everybody's okay with that, we should probably just go for it.
All right, let's do that.
Natalie, do you want to make the motion since you were starting to do that before?
Sure. Natalie makes a motion to present the statement as written by Elaine to the board as a recommendation to add to the signing of the petition. Yes.
Is there a second?
Yeah, Martha Gaines, I'll second.
All right, roll call vote. Natalie Salee.
Yes.
Martha Gaines.
Yes.
Elaine Siegel.
Yes.
JC Herman. Yes. Awesome. And thank you again, Elaine. You knocked it out of the park. It was great. You did a really good job.
Oh,
You should be a lawyer or something.
I've been told that.
You should really look into that. I feel like law school would be great.
I actually, now that I think about it, I think I might have an apprentice for you. She's very nearby. I think I might have someone that might help you out in your skills, and you could teach her a thing or two too. Okay, we're good. We're ready to adjourn. Do we have anything else to cover? There's nothing else on the agenda?
Nothing on the agenda. Martha Gaines, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Elaine Siegel, second.
All right, roll call vote. Natalie Salee.
Yes.
Martha Gaines.
Yes.
Elaine Siegel.
Yes.
JC Herman. Yes. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
You too.
Thanks, everybody. It was great.
Bye.
Bye.